Thank you, Tom. I'm glad Kyle and Amy are keeping you from happy hour and not me. So, how many charities in the room, if I could see a show of hands? I know there's a couple of Community Foundation people. What I wanted to talk about is a couple gifts we've worked on at Penn State to show you that unconventional gifts don't need to be scary and they can be accomplished. As Bud said earlier, the Penn State Extension people back in 2008, 2009 did a series of seminars that were pre and post leasing. And we were fortunate enough, because of the Penn State brand on that, we got some outright gifts of people who were doing signing bonuses. But my office worked with some people to do some more complicated gifts that really weren't complicated but made sense. One gift I want to highlight is a donor who had 80 acres of land and actually did an irrevocable land trust, or gas lease trust. So basically, they put the lease into an irrevocable trust. Their daughter is the trustee. They had two daughters, one who lived in Florida, one who lives here in Pennsylvania. So they wanted to keep the money local. So each child got 20% of the royalty income. The other 60% was split between 10 charities, with Penn State getting one tenth of the income, or 6%. But basically, they wanted to benefit their United Way, Salvation Army, the local public library, the local community foundation, the Red Cross, their church, their local high school, and scholarships at the university. But because the smaller charities did not have the resources, they came to Penn State and said, would you help us set up this trust? And of course we wanted to do that, even though we were only getting 1/10 of the charitable piece. We knew what was good for the Commonwealth and the community was good for everyone. And that's sort of the philosophy we've taken. So we have been working with Tom, who's on my advisory council, to develop an assignment of royalty interest that we want to share with all nonprofits, community foundations, other charities, which will be a simple assignment of royalty interest. So if a donor wants to give 5% of a future lease, when they sign that or get a signing bonus, they can sign that and direct money to charity when that well is drilled and production starts. Northwest Bank also has that as part of their royalty management program. They have a spot on their form when they work with people managing royalty interests, and it specifically says, do you want to direct part of your royalty payments to charity? So they've been out talking to their clients about this, and I appreciate that, Bud, for you doing that. A couple other gifts that we've got. We had one donor who received a signing bonus. Widowed, wife was cared for at Hershey Medical, graduate of our College of Agriculture, no children, but he had nieces and nephews. So we ended up setting up a charitable remainder trust that provided income to him for his life, and that trust continued for 10 years after his death, and will benefit nieces and nephews. He's still alive and kicking. He's not that young, but hopefully will live for many more years. But we did two things. He wanted not to take away the money from the signing bonus and future production. They have not drilled on his property yet, from family and heirs, and we found a way to do that. So for the smaller nonprofits who might not be able to manage a charitable remainder trust, there's banks, trust companies, community foundations who can do that. So don't be afraid if somebody wants to do something that you feel you don't have the capacity or the expertise. There are advisors in this room who can assist you in that and look at that. Another area where we've done gifts are people who've set up testamentary trusts and named Penn State to receive a royalty interest upon their death if the well is still producing. We're working with one woman now who wants to put a conservation easement on her property and actually sever the surface rights from the gas rights. She's getting about $300,000 a year up in Bradford County in royalty payments, no heirs. She wants Penn State to get the royalty income, and at some point in the future, after 30 or 40 years, have those rights reattached to the surface rights. So if and when that property sells 40 years down the road, both rights are connected back up. So the one thing we've trained our staff, we have a large development staff, we tell them to look at the Utica and Marcellus Shale areas. And if you're meeting with a prospect in those areas, as Tom said earlier, ask them, have they signed an oil or gas lease? Do they know anybody who has a Penn State connection who signed an oil or gas lease? If they're traveling to the western part of Pennsylvania and are not asking these questions, we're missing an opportunity. So we've been trying to coach our staff with 4 or 5 questions and that elevator speech. Here's what you need to ask and come back with, and if somebody says yes to any of those questions, here's what you say and get our office involved. So we've been really trying to promote this, and I wouldn't say we've closed a lot of these gifts, probably 10 to 12 over the last 8 to 9 years. The price of gas has dropped, so our discussions have dwindled a little bit from what we had a few years ago, but we have tremendous opportunity in the future that the price of gas will come back up. So we are talking to people now, engaging in these conversations to hopefully have success in the future. I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the gifts I mentioned or anything else.